is Jade, and I'm here to talk to you about genetic research, the missing link to fighting obesity. It is estimated by the year 2030, 42% of the American population will be obese. Estimates like this are startling and only add to the fact that the obesity epidemic is still out of control. Our government and health organizations fund multiple educational programs, health interventions, and research projects to try and combat against obesity. However, they are missing a very important component. That component is genetic research. Genetic research is a very recent field, but because of its technological advances, it has been allowed to flourish. Scientists have already found obesity genes. Their current research is looking at how our genes interact with external factors such as our diet, our lifestyle choices, and other environmental factors such as stress, and how this can lead to obesity. In genetic research, we look at the topics of genetics and epigenetics. We know that genes are something that we inherit but cannot change. Epigenetics are also something that we inherit, but we can change them. This is because epigenetics are made up of chemical markers. These chemical markers can come from the foods we eat to a variety of other external factors. The good thing about epigenetics is as our external factors change, our chemical markers change. And when our chemical markers change, epigenetics are able to control how certain genes are expressed. However, when we are exposed to certain chemical markers that can be found in poor diet or other external factors, we can create epigenetic dysfunctions. These dysfunctions will often cause the overexpression of certain genes and metabolic pathways that could lead to obesity. Genetic research helps us understand obesity as a cycle. Researchers will look at external factors such as our diet and environment and how this creates chemical markers in our epigenetics, which will determine how certain genes are expressed. How certain genes are expressed will control our metabolic pathways. Metabolic pathways are how our body takes food, breaks it down into energy, and either uses it or stores it. Hormones that work in metabolic pathways can also cause certain behaviors, such as overeating behaviors. The following two slides will look at two external factors in the genetic context and how this helps us understand the obesity cycle. A study by Drummond and Gibney looked at the diet of obese women. They followed obese women on a low-calorie diet, and at the end of this study, not only had the women lost weight, they had also discovered that the women had lower levels of leptin-promoting genes. Before, the women had very high levels of leptin. When there are high levels of leptin, our body thinks that it is in starvation mode and causes hormones that would make us overeat. Not only do we overeat, but all the food we eat is stored as fat when we are in starvation mode. This is a perfect example of understanding the obesity cycle and how certain genes affect our metabolic pathways. For example, how the food energy is stored as fat, and how this promotes a certain type of behavior, such as overeating, and the cycle continues. However, because Drummond and Gibney were able to use genetic research, they were able to find that a change in diet was able to reverse the obesity cycle. The change in diet changed the epigenetic markers that were promoting leptin. This caused a change in metabolic pathways, which eliminated the behavior of overeating. Another external factor is stress. Stress is caused by cortisol, and when our body has an overreaction to cortisol, it will cause changes in our metabolic pathway that will cause overeating behaviors and a preference for high density or for nutrient dense foods, which tend to be very sweet. Not only will this cause a preference for sweet foods and also overeating, it will cause our body to store this food as fat. Druntrop looked at men who had an overreactive stress response and was able to determine that this was caused by an expression of a cortisol receptor gene. Because of this, Druntrop was able to create a treatment that blocked the specific cortisol receptor. These two studies are examples of how genetic research allows us to understand different sections of the obesity cycle. Drummoyd and Gibney's study looked at how genes affect metabolic pathways which affect our behavior. Drunchop's study was able to see how cortisol, which affects a metabolic pathway, creates behavior, and how he was able to create a change of genetic markers by introducing a specific treatment. Because each case of obesity has a unique set of external factors and genetic predispositions, we cannot use generic treatments such as eat less food and exercise more. We need to use genetic research to understand the connection between our genes, our metabolic pathways, our behaviors, and our external factors. By doing this, we can create more effective and specific obesity treatments for each person. Genetic research provides us with the future we need to improve obesity treatment. Thank you for listening.